Welcome to the Redvee TV Show, supported by Chapel House Cars for the 2024 season. Kevin, it is the first preview type show of the year, if you ignore the 32-player previews.
And how can we ignore that going through every single member of the squad? We can't, can we?
It feels like an age, but the Super League season is finally here. Saints take on the London Broncos this Friday evening at 8 p.m. at the Totally Wicked Stadium. Are we glad to be back?
Yes. Yeah, to be fair, I think a lot's been said about Saints not being champions at the moment and almost having that renewed wanting to win. I think there's always the hunger in a squad, but I think when you've won it 4 years on the bounce and you start, it almost becomes the norm. So for us to end the season with only the World Club Challenge in our locker, you start thinking, right, want to get back to it and want to get challenging for the trophies again.
Some of our younger fans, especially like if you like started following Saints when you were like 10, 11, and you've had like 4 or 5 years of success, your mind does, or your memory doesn't really remember not being champions potentially. So I think for some of our younger fans, this is the first real time they're going to have that hunger of wanting to win it back. And that's testament to how long, obviously, we've been on this stream of success. And listen, we talk about not being successful last year, but we finished level on points with the top two. And we were in the semi-finals in both comps. If that's not success for St. Helens, then I don't know what it feels like to be a Warrington fan.
I was going to say, the only problem with that, where you say we got to the semis and we finished third, it's that old gift that you see from FIFA where there's no trophy in it and they're lifting it and celebrating. That's
absolutely, yeah. And that is the problem, and that is where the hunger comes from, because it's not nice. It's not nice to see your arch rivals winning it. It's not nice to not be at Old Trafford to seeing your team lift it. And the hunger, certainly among the fans, and I'm sure amongst the squad, is that we're going to get back at it and get back what is rightfully ours. Right, Kev, shall we get on with it?
Yes, why not?
London calling as Super League kicks off. And the Saints squad news is in, Kevin, and I'll let you talk us through it.
I'm not doing the ins and outs from last season, but one player is missing the number 9, James Roby, who it does feel really weird not mentioning in a squad. Obviously, from that list, Joe Batchelor is missing out with a collarbone injury. Morgan Knowles isn't quite ready yet. Moses Mbai has got a bit of a knee problem, but should be available next week. And Iggy Parsi is the long-term injury in the top 25 squad numbers. But apart from that, I mean, that is still a very, very strong 21-man squad.
Yeah, and you look at some of the younger players who have gone well in pre-season, who aren't even near that 21 at the moment, even with the injuries, which shows the strength and depth that we've got. Does what happened last season, where league position could well have been our downfall of not being able to reach Old Trafford by having to go to Catalan and the toughness of travelling to the south of France, does that reiterate just how important every win, every 2 points is in Super League, which means that we need to attack the top spot or at very least top 2 spot. And you can't have any weeks off, and there can be no room for not sentiment, but a great deal of squad rotation just to give players a go, because you need to make sure that you're on it every week.
Yeah, I think the squad rotation thing is probably right. Just you tended to see them when it wasn't even the double headers; it was the week after as well, where it could be a bit flat. I know what you mean about not sentiment, but you need to go out there and put the best team that you possibly can. Now, if you put the best team out, that might be that someone is really, as they call it, in the red zone for injury, and needs resting at this point of the season, first game in. Apart from the ones that you don't want to risk, and I know Percy wasn't risked in the trial match against Salford, you should have everyone available, and those that aren't available are bona fide injuries. I don't think there's the place really for, well, this is a good time to put X, Y, and Z in the team because it's only London. I think you've got to go out there and hit the ground running, because as you say, points difference did for us last year. Winning games is obviously the bread and butter. You've got to just see if you can push it and make some of them, not leave points out there, make some of them scores a little bit wider.
Yeah. I'm going to get onto the teams that we think will be the ones to take to the field. They might not necessarily be the ones that we would pick personally, but it's what we think is likely to happen on Friday evening. Now, I'll start with mine, Kev. And I might steal your thunder a little bit when I give my reasons why. As you can see, our teams are very, very similar. The only difference is I've got George Delaney starting over Matty Lees. And I think the reason I've gone with that is purely based on Matty Lees missing the pre-season game. So I'd start with George and Alex as your front row, and then introduce Matty a little bit later on, just to get him his minutes that he needs. Because essentially for him, this could be his it is his first hit out of the year. Equally, Mark Percival comes back into my team as well, and again coming back from injury. And you don't want him to probably go 80 minutes in this game, which means I've gone for Ben Davies on the bench. At some point in the game, Ben Davies will probably come on after Mark Percival's done the work that he needs to do if the game is won, and take his place in the centres. Now, it was a toss-up for me between whether I went for Ben or John Bennison. And the reason I went with Ben is if you take Mark Percival off, you've only got to make a like-for-like change. Whereas if you put John Bennison on the bench, you're likely then taking Percival off, moving Wonga Blake inside, and then putting Bennison on the wing outside. And I don't see the need to make two changes for the sake of it. I've got Matt Whitley coming in and starting in the second row. I just think that's where he'll play. James Bell started at loose forward in Morgan Knowles' absence against Salford, so I can't see there being any change there. And then obviously on my bench, I've got Sione acting as another prop. You've got Jake Wingfield, who can relieve Darryl Clark for a spell at 9 if necessary, and also potentially play it loose. And I think that's the team I've gone with. I've missed Jake Burns out. I know some fans would have him as your interchange off the bench, but although he's the third hooker in the squad, I don't necessarily think he's the third choice to go in at 9 if necessary. I think you've got the likes of Jake Wingfield who could step in there ahead of him. And that is why I have gone with the team I have gone with, Kev.
Fair enough. I've gone with Ben Davies on the bench because I'm going to read you some of Paul Wellens' words from his interview ahead of this game. How is Mark Percival after missing last week? He's coming in and he should be good to play. If that's not the case, we can shuffle things around with either Wonga Blake playing centre with John Bennison on the wing, which I don't think will be the one, or Ben Davies can play centre with Wonga on the wing. Also, he was on about younger members of the squad, and he said Jake Burns could come into the reckoning, and we have a number of players like Ben Davies whose utility value is important to us as well. The mention of Ben Davies a couple of times in that interview just lends me to think that he's going to get the nod above Jake Burns. As people who are watching this, and if they can see me in the little box when you were talking about your team and you mentioned Jake Wingfield playing at 9, put my head in my hands, because I don't want to see Jake Wingfield wasted at 9. I'd rather have a 9 there, but that's me. That's my choice. Similar to you, where I think that obviously George covers prop. In my team, George covers prop. Sione can cover prop, second row if needed. Jake Wingfield can cover anywhere in the pack. So he might come on at 13. He might do a little bit at 9, but he can prop as well. And then Ben Davies can cover second row and centre. And I was thinking similar to you, whether it is Percy or whether it's Wonga Blake, who is a little bit underdone. They've got the option there of potentially taking one of them off and putting Ben Davies into the action. And that's why I went with him above anybody else. I just think, as I say, these couple of times that he's been mentioned, there's a reason why he's been mentioned.
Yes. Look into the words. There's usually a narrative behind them, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's the thing, because we don't know what Wello's doing this year. I've got to take his words and try and fit them into a team, and that's what I've done there.
Okay, Kevin, the London squad, talk us through it.
Well, listen, I don't know too much about this London squad. I really don't. There's a smattering of names who've been in and around the game for some time. I've not seen much of them because I won't lie and say, oh yeah, I watch the Championship and them every week. They are an unknown quantity, aren't they?
Yes. They haven't had the best of pre-seasons, have they, in terms of injury? Bill Leyland, Josh Rourke, Lewis Beanick and Ethan Natoli out for an indefinite amount of time. And we're told they are 4 players who will be in their 17. They're about, so they're already reaching into squad depth in a part-time squad. There isn't many names who've played Super League there. Hakeem Maludi, Rob Butler, Lee Kershaw. That's roughly it, isn't it? And you look at them; they were they 6th or 7th in the Championship, but went on that run of games to make the playoffs. So they're not coming up from the Championship as like runaway winners. They've played the system just like Leeds did for many years, to win the title. I really fear for London this year, and this is a game that Saints should win very, very comfortably.
Yeah, I think, as you say, looking at that squad, I think Reece Kennedy's another one. Did he play for Hull KR? Probably, I think, last year. And he's ended up there. I didn't want to, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but with the fact that they are a bit decimated by injuries, and are still, to all intents and purposes, part-time, this should act as the first full run out for Saints and almost as a warm-up game for the pre-season. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here because I don't mean it disrespectfully, and I'm not saying that we should approach this as a trial game, but it's another good game to get minutes under your belt and get stuck into a team. We should be looking to get stuck into London. Because, as you say, I do worry about them and what they're going to be able to do this season. They'll pick up. They may well pick up a couple of points along the way, and hopefully they prove me completely wrong. But I can't see it being more than a handful.
No. In terms of, we spoke about needing to get off to a quick start. We need to make sure we put more points on the board. This is almost the perfect game to get yourself top of the table from the off and set yourself the goal of we're staying top all year. Try and knock us off the pitch.
Yeah, you could do. I think it depends on weather as well. I think it could well be a drizzly day, so whether that's going to be conducive to great free flowing rugby. Sorry, but we should just have too much going forward. It might be a little bit closer, but we've got to look to get our fitness levels, our stamina, and our skill set. That once we get to that last half an hour, we're putting our foot down and taking ourselves well away from London if we're not already.
Yeah, I think it's about being professional. If we get a couple of early tries on the board, not taking the foot off the gas, and realising last season, I go back to it, shows just how important points difference can be. And Wigan and Lee and Catalan, they were good at putting teams to the sword. And I felt too many times last season, even in games that we won, we allowed teams to linger longer than necessary. So for me, we go all out on Friday night. And given what we saw in pre-season with how the attack looked against Salford, albeit only in a 40-minute short spell, if we can replicate that, I'm very, very confident that Saints win this by 60 plus.
Yeah, I think the issue is replicating that. I mean, Salford didn't look great, did they? I've not seen too much. I don't think London have had the greatest of pre-season. Obviously, losing players, but I don't think they've been like battering teams either and everywhere. Did they draw against Oldham? Have I made that up?
Yeah, I think it was 18-all, wasn't it? And did they beat Cass or lose narrowly to Cass?
Yeah,
Which isn't really a good yardstick.
No. As you say, I'm expecting Saints to be professional and professional enough to win this and win it at arm's length. Q14-4 either way now, I've said that.
Yeah, it was 18-all against Oldham away. And I'm pretty sure they got beat at Cass. But I do fear for London. And I think a lot of it comes down to the predicament that they've been placed in terms of knowing that they're not going to be in Super League next season because of the grading. There just isn't it doesn't make financial sense for them to have gone full time and invest in staying in Super League and losing half of the team who would have been unable to step up but are so successful in the Championship. I don't think they've got anything to lose, and it's not being disrespectful to them at all, because I really wish we had a successful London team. And we've always said it can't be forced, it needs to happen organically. It has happened organically, but unfortunately the system has changed and it's going to essentially screw them out of a place, regardless of how they do.
Yeah, so it's almost like that organically happening thing. They're trying to hold on to that as much as they can. So rather than throwing loads at it, as you say, take the medicine this year, have a squad good enough to push again for promotion and see what happens in the future. I do wish London all the best. I love an away day in London. But as you say, we keep going back to this phrase that you worry for them. And I just do. I don't see a way that they don't finish bottom of the table. And I hate saying that about the team, but I just don't see it at all.
They drew 14-all with Cass.
There we go.
Which probably tells you a lot about where Cass are at as well at this moment in time.
It depends on the teams. I've not seen the teams that each have played. And yeah, it's... well, we had Cass in our bottom three as well when we did our predictions, didn't we? But I think Cass have got a bit of a project going on. This isn't Tiger TV. What am I talking about? But Cass have got a little bit of a project going on with trying to make the squad a little bit younger, bring a couple of players through that you might not know, players who've got something to prove, almost like Everton back in the day where they signed the likes of Lee Carsley and Scott Gemmell and players like that who might have played 20 times. You know what I mean, though? Like, they played a couple of times for you, weren't necessarily the greatest players, but when they turned out, like Lee Carsley turned out to be a decent signing for you. There might be a good Lee Carsley signing for Cass in there. I can't believe I mentioned Lee Carsley about 8 times.
Just 1 point. Lee Carsley wasn't young.
No, you know what I mean? Just a squad filler almost. Neither was Scott Gemmell, I don't think.
Right. This isn't Everton Retro TV either, Kevin. Right then, Kev. Prediction. How many?
I'd be disappointed with less than 40.
I've gone Saints by 62. And that's only in case we concede a garbage try at the end of the game.
I think, and basing that on what we did to Salford in that first half, I know they were kicking into the wind, but what we did to Salford in that first half, if we, and this is a risky thing to say, if we could keep everybody on the field, we should be putting London and putting points on them. And I would be slightly disappointed. I know it would be professional, but I'd be slightly disappointed if we came away and we won 30 points to 10.
Yeah, and as important as scoring points is as well, it's the professionality of keeping that defensive line solid. Because again, it's no point scoring them at one end and then leaking them in the back door.
Yes, and I know that we're still going to be working on combinations and how they work together with the likes of Matt Whitley coming in, with the likes of Wonga Blake coming in. They're all going to have to learn how each other works and how the unit works, but it's going to be pretty simple. They've just got to be at it from minute one.
Yeah, and I'm going to end this by saying none of this is meant to be disrespectful in the slightest. I think we're just trying to base it on the reality of the situation, and whether it be Wigan, St Helens, Catalan facing London at home, first game with their part-time status and their injury record at the moment, you would expect all of the top teams to be looking to put a big score on.
Oh, absolutely right. Anyone who has aspirations for the top six, I would be backing them to put an absolute big score on this week. Absolutely right. Anyone who you think would be in. So I think when we did our predictions, we had Hull KR and Lee and Leeds around the looking to put a decent score on them, no matter who that is. As you say, it's not disrespectful. We're just trying to be realistic with what is actually happening.
Okay. Very last thing to leave in your mind before you finish and go off doing whatever you're doing for the rest of the day. St Helens Mobile Pantry will be outside the Totally Wicked Stadium before every home game this season, collecting food for the food bank. They do such great work in the local community. Everything that goes to them stays local. So if you donate, you're helping people in St Helens who are less fortunate or find themselves in a predicament that pretty much any of us could find ourselves in. So if you can take a tin, a food item, and we'll put the list out on our social media channels, it will be greatly appreciated. Just imagine, Kev, if we've got 10,000 there and 10,000 fans brought a tin of food, it'd be absolutely tremendous. So hopefully you'll find them. I think they're going to be by not far from the Kieran Cunningham statue. So do you know what? Just pack something in your pocket on the way out of the door, and you don't realise how much of a long way it'll go for them.
Yeah, exactly. As you say, we have put a list out of what they need, but we'll put it out again. Because listen, we'd rather not have to do this for people who are struggling. We'd rather that the world worked perfectly and people didn't have to go to food banks. But while they're there, they do such a great job. So if you can give them your support, please do so.
Right, Kev, that is us done and dusted. I will see you on Friday, and we will be back on the road doing our instant fan reaction for the 2024 season. Let us hope it is a successful start. Catch you soon. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.